One of the terms that I hear from a lot of bands is there's no such thing as overnight success. Well, that's not entirely true. It happens to some people. But for those folks, they're usually not ready for fame. Justin Bieber certainly wasn't. We're certainly not talking in that genre today because we don't cover that genre. The band we're concentrating on today, from the Isle of Wight, formed in 1979. But they didn't have their North American breakthrough, or really their worldwide breakthrough, till 1985. They had released 5 albums up to that point. Sure, they had success in the UK. Before their breakthrough, their sixth album, they had 5 UK singles, 5 UK hits. But when that sixth album came out, I mean, these guys were men already. They already played the clubs. They'd done the work to get into that room, to get into those clubs. On their sixth album, the world got to know Level 42. And even though their success was not as big in the US, they became a world-renowned band. A lot of the word of mouth was basically, wow, these guys can play. I remember seeing them opening for Steve Winwood. I was blown away on how good this band was. But it was the album World Machine, which has easily become one of my favorite 80s albums. In fact, as the title states, I call this a perfect record. There is nothing bad on this record. And that kind of thing doesn't happen on a fluke. Again, you got to do the work to be able to do that kind of thing. We talked to Mike Lindup. He's the keyboard player and the background vocalist who's been with the band for most of their incarnation. Many months ago, we talked to him about his brand new album called Changes 2, of course, a follow-up to Changes 1, which I also consider a must-have for any Level 42 fan. It's such a great record. We talk about that, Level 42, Mark King, Something About You, and a lot more with Mike Lindup on Rock History Music. In North America, a lot of people didn't know in 1985 when you guys, when World Machine took off. I didn't know when I first heard that album that you had 5 albums before that. Sometimes you hear, well, you have your whole life to do your first album, and then you've got 6 months to do your second album. And there's all these little musical cliche. You can go gold and ride the bus in Canada, stuff like that. But
Yeah.
you guys had really, you'd done, I always say you got to do the work to get in the room. You guys had done the work at that point, but what did that mean to you? Because, I looked at your albums. They've all charted. They all did well in the UK, but then you're in the top 10. What was that like as a band? What was that like for you?
Well, with obviously the benefit of hindsight, I look back and think, we were lucky to have an apprenticeship, to be allowed a time to really, we were given what was then a standard contract in 1981. After we did the first early tapes record for Andy Soiter's Elite label, which later came out as the early tapes. So we had the eponymous Level 42 album, and then we had Pursuit of Accidents, and then Standing in the Light, working with Larry and Vadine, in LA, which was amazing. True Colors with Ken Scott as producer, and then World Machine. So we had a 5-album deal, 5-year, 5-album deal. And we had to learn how to write songs, how to record, how to use the studio, how to get things done before a deadline when you've only got half-finished ideas, how to mix. And then on the other side of it, how to be a live band, how to play to a room of more than 300 people, how to reach the back of an 8,000-seater arena. But that just comes from experience. You can't teach that. You can't learn that on YouTube. You just got to go out and do that. So because we were in that situation, by the time it got to World Machine, where Mark King had sort of put his foot down and said, listen, we should take a lot more time about writing these songs because we'll get a better album. And if we get a better album, it's gonna sell more. More people are gonna hear it, and we'll write better songs. So the World Machine thing, it's kind of we were lucky enough that other people started to really cotton onto Level 42 over the sort of core fan base that we built up. And a lot of that fan base was built up from the live shows. So many people came to me and said, yeah, I kind of heard the album and, the song, it's okay. But when I saw the band live, it's like, that's what did it for me. So we knew that live was our best calling card, which is why we've done and still continue to tour. I'm doing a 7-week tour in October, November. And I love playing live, and Mark loves playing live. And, our role models in terms of retirement are a Mr. Mick Jagger, Mr. Keith Richards, a Sir Elton John, or a Sir Paul McCartney.
Yeah, the Elton John thing's big on our channel because the first album I ever bought was Madman Across the Water. I've talked to so many of his bandmates. I'll never get Elton. I haven't even tried to get Elton. Ray, who introduced Bernie to Elton. We've got Caleb Quay, his first big guitarist on this series now. It's just the Elton thing. It's interesting though. Just in the beginning, when I started doing Elton videos, my audience, because it's mostly rock,
Yeah.
it seemed like they didn't care about. I thought, how can you not care about Elton John? But then slowly we started getting other people in, and now the Elton videos do well. But I was surprised. By the way, I consider World Machine. We're doing a whole series on perfect albums. I consider World Machine one of the perfect albums of the 80s. There's everything just. There's no weak points on that record to me. I know you were on it, so maybe you don't look at it that way, but you got to be pretty proud of. I mean, I know you guys had a lot of great albums after that, but there's just something about that record.
No, I mean, the timing was good. I think, we'd kind of, Mark had made the statement that we need to go up a few gears, and we kind of responded, and it's funny because by that time, 1985, a couple of us had sort of like, demo tape studios. Mark had an 8-track in his loft in Streatham in southwest London. We did most of the demoing there. And, so by the time we went into the studio, we had a much better idea of what we were doing and what the songs wanted to sound like. But we had a couple of almost setbacks in that a rough mix tape had gone to our then first manager, John Gould, and he'd played it somewhere at Polydor, and they sort of came back saying, we're not sure that the songs are that good, maybe you're going to have to think about, getting another songwriter in or writing some more stuff. And we were kind of looking at each other going, but this is the best stuff we've written. Of course, as a musician, you're not actually listening to the sound that's coming off the tape. You're hearing it finished and mixed with all the sparkle and fairy dust because you can easily envision that. So that was one setback. And the other setback was that the Something About You demo, which was great, when we laid it down in the studio, for some reason, it just wasn't happening. It just didn't have the life and the bounce. And I mean, we didn't have final lyrics then. We had a kind of guide thing, but that's always what we had. And so Wally, who was co-producing, got together with Phil and Mark, and they started beefing up the drums and adding this on the bass. And Julian Mendelssohn, who was the first time we worked with him, amazing engineer. He'd got this amazing drum sound. Phil said, I think it's probably his favorite drum sound that we ever got. And it started to come alive. And then Boone walked in with this set of lyrics, because Phil was going to write the lyrics for Something About You originally. And I think he'd written a draft, and then Boone came in with these other lyrics. And we looked at those, and Mark kind of went, these are better words. So Phil kind of got the hump and stormed off for a bit. And then me and Mark went in and started singing this. And then when the vocals went on, we came back into the control room and listened to it with the words and the vocals. Suddenly, it was like magic. We got the A&R guy from Polydor, Alan Sizer, in. He sat down and he listened to the song and went, yeah, that's a hit. And it's like suddenly we weren't in jeopardy anymore. We kind of got the green light. And as it turned out, it was our best album by miles that we'd done up to that point.
The video, Something About You. What was
Yes.
I mean, I just reissued the clip with Phil going, well, he says, well, I wasn't an actor. And he says, the other guys, he says, he talked about you being, where were you? Was that a library? Where were you with Sherry?
Okay, so that was, that was shot over, I think it was 2 or 3 days, and there was about 4 or 5 different locations. So the segment that I did with Sherry was in, it's a concert hall in a church, St. John's Smith Square. It's regular classical venue, and this, still do concerts to this day. And so that was all shot in and around that building. So the bit where we sort of, she gets cross with me and storms out, and then I go after her, and that's like straight out of the building. The thing about Sherry is that, we got this proper director in directed films and TV, and we wanted it to be more than just a music video with us playing the instruments and maybe a girl somewhere in shot or something like that. It was like there was more to be gotten out of that song, and so the treatment when we saw it was really fantastic, and it got even better in the execution. And when they told us that the girl in the video is going to be Sherry Lungi, it's like she'd just come off filming The Mission with a guy called Bob De Niro and a guy called Jeremy Irons, and there we are. And Phil's right. I mean, none of us are actors, but it was kind of like, okay, well, you've got to fake it till you make it. I've got Sherry opposite me, so giving gravitas to whatever scene she's in. So you just, try and lift yourself up to the plate, as it were. So I just did the best I could to do what was required, which wasn't very much. But I definitely
Mark got
was
into
feeling
it.
that.
Mark really got into it.
Mark, I think is probably, he's great at inventing his characters and kind of going for it. No, he could be a great actor. I mean, he's just so talented at whatever he puts his hand to. So, and I like the fact that the story wasn't really obvious. There's a lot of mystery in it. And in fact, I don't know if Phil told you this, but one of the American Polygram execs, when they saw the videos, like, who's this clown figure? What's going on with this clown figure? It doesn't make sense. Anyway, of course, the thing went out to be a great success. So when we released Leaving Me Now as our next single, the word came down, make sure there's a clown in it.
He's taking off his makeup. Yeah, I remember.
Exactly. So that's how we incorporated the clown into the Leaving Me Now video, because it was a request from the high-ups that the clown had to make a reappearance.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
Man, I gotta tell you, man, I was listening to this album. Of course, I just got it, as you know. What the heck? It's great.
Oh, thank you.
Now, I don't mean to sound like I'm a big Level 42 fan, but I don't mean to sound like I'm surprised. But man, like, I get, as you can imagine, I mean, I'm 63. Most of the guys I interview on our channel, they're 10 years older than me. Some of them still got it as well. I'm not naming names. Other, like Steve Lukather just sent me his new album. I've talked to him numerous times, and his album just blew my mind. But this one, right on that level, is just by the way, the sound is amazing. The production.
Thank you. Well,
was that you? Who was that?
Well, it was, I have to give big credit to my co-producers, Mike Pato and Tony Economidis. Tony's kind of like engineer, producer, programmer. Mike is a producer and keyboard player, but they've worked as a team for a long time now. And I actually did a session for someone else that they were producing. And when I saw them in action, and I've worked with Tony before on a kind of Brazilian R&B band back in the early 2000s. So I knew their credentials, but when I saw them in action, I thought that's exactly what I need to bring out the best of my ideas. And
Atlantia, State of the Planet, Universal DNA, respecting Earth. Listen, this is I can't turn on the TV, and that's been that case. I find it interesting. Let me start there. I find it sometimes I'll talk about what you're saying in that song, which is a theme, off and on the album, and I'll sometimes realize that people don't see it. They're not like I'm watching the news and I see that and I'm aware, I'm plugged in, but I'm sometimes surprised that some people are going, what? I mean, they know the planet's going to crap in some areas, but they don't know. They're just, they're.
Well, I mean, there's lots of things to say about that. Obviously, it's a big subject, and it's scary, and kind of, in a sense, what I say in the lyric of the last song on the album, Courage to Change, is, when I was young, the future was a beautiful place. It was this place that we all look for. When we get to the future, there'll be flying cars, there'll be Star Trek meals. You can just press a button and have whatever you want, It was like something to aspire to. And now the whole conversation is kind of almost like, it's like, oh, we're doomed, climate change, we're ruining the earth, what will our kids inherit? So it's a big topic. So I can completely get why, some people really don't want to sort of dwell on that. Or if they do, they need to find a way that they can approach it with a positive attitude rather than, well, there's no point kind of thing. And also, the other thing I was going to say is that when you write a song, I've discovered this over the years, and you put it out in the world, people hear totally different, make totally different interpretations, and they hear the words they hear, and they make the meaning that they make the meaning, and that's completely valid.
There's that thing, I always say, when we were growing up, you'd always have kids telling you, oh, you like that band? Oh, crap, you're crazy and stuff like that. And at least there's a thing that I found, because we do a Friday Night Live on our channel, and we're always throwing out, you like what you like. You either like Justin Bieber or you don't. You can't help what you like. The lyrics are the same thing. It's there. You can't. I always ask artists, well, what's that song about? And maybe 10% of them will go, well, they're going to get their own meaning off it. And I'm going, I just started hearing that in the last 5 years from artists saying they're just going to get what they want from it. I almost don't want to ruin it by telling them what it's about. But yes. Oh, by the way, Time to Let Go. That drum beat, I'm a drummer. That I listen to that, I'm going, that's a beautiful thing.
Thank you. Well, that's one of my proudest moments, I suppose, on the album. The fact that because I studied percussion at music school and music college, and my dad bought me a drum kit in 1977, and I was a drummer for a while as well as a percussionist. I was in a dodgy cover band at college. We played all kinds of stuff, trying to play funk and soul and so on. But I love the drums. And then when I met up with the guys in Level 42, unfortunately, Mark King, who was a far, far better drummer than I'd ever be, same with Phil Gould, we kind of had 3 drummers and a guitarist when we were forming. So, while that might have been interesting for a bit, obviously I played piano for longer, so that was kind of my role. But it was a chance, this album, to dust the rust off my kind of drum chops. And what we ended up doing is a lot of hybrid things where, for example, so obviously my right foot is it was never really solid anyway. So I could program in the bass drum, and then I could play either, hi-hat and snare and toms, which I do, and You Can't Just Live as an Island, or on Time to Let Go, it's actually, I'm playing brushes, so it's hi-hat, snare, and all that kind of busy stuff. That's all me sort of doing stuff. And then the beauty of the software is that you can cheat, but not completely. So what you can do is you can just bring it into line, or even better with Logic, is you can take a couple of bars where it's got a good swing, and you can apply what they call a groove template over the rest of the song. So all the other kind of time adjustments move into a groove that you created. So it kind of gives it much more personality than just sticking everything on straight 16ths, which you may as well use a drum machine. So and then I could break out on the percussion and play some cymbals and stuff like that. So, I had a blast being able to be playing drums and percussion on my own album.
That's the thing about when it's your project. There's this, I hate to overstate the obvious. It's a blank screen. But that's got to be fun for you, because I'm as I'm listening to this, every album, every song is a vibe. My first program director, I've been in radio 40 years, would tell me, yeah, you're going to pick that song, but how does it make you feel? How does that, there's a really cool vibe. And by the way, good sequencing. I love the sequencing a lot. I hate to point at you, but that's important to me. I love those hills and valleys. I like the way the album progresses. How conscious is that for you?
Well, 2 of those songs, Atlantia and Time to Let Go, both, the inspiration was a sequence. I with Time to Let Go, I bought this Novation rack, and I was just, going through the patches, looking for new sounds like you do. And there was this patch which had an arpeggiator on it. And I just sort of had these 4 chord shapes, and I carried that around. It was like I had a 9-minute thing of just the sequence, just going around and around those 4 chords. And I thought, this has got a real vibe. I don't know what to do with it, but, I'll just stick it on the back burner and wait and see. And when I went in to meet Mike and Tony with my kind of original demos, and I put on that sequence, and I said, I think this could be a great song. No idea what yet, but what do you think? And they loved it too. And so the first thing we did was put the drum beat down, and then I got the Moog bass out, and then we put the bass line in, and suddenly it was like happening. And then it's like, okay, so what am I going to sing about? So then I was coming up with top lines and, riffing lyrics and stuff like that. And Mike heard the lyric "Time to Let Go," which is in there, and he said, and he started singing what became the hook, and it kind of evolved that way. But because they were in the same page as me, that's why those were the guys to really be with on this song.
I hope you enjoyed that. Remember, join our newsletter. There's been a few problems with the link. It didn't work. Hopefully it's back up now. The link is in the description where you can join our newsletter so you won't miss any videos. And I've said this the last few days. Thank you so much for the folks who just out of nowhere donated funds to our PayPal. It helped us buy a 4K camera, which we're using right now, because all of our videos now, here on end, are in 4K. And you asked for it. They're all going to be at least 20 minutes long. If one comes out and it's not 20 minutes, it means we've done it before. We've decided to do this because we do bank our videos on YouTube. It's a joke around the house, but I mean, right now I have probably around 30 videos ready to launch that are all docked on YouTube. So if I get hit by a bus, at least Shannon will make money. But anyway, thanks for the folks who donated on PayPal. There's a link to PayPal in the description if you ever want to help the channel. You can also join Patreon and get early access to our videos as well. Subscribe to our channel, share our videos, comment on them, and like our videos. I'm John Bowden. This is Rock History Music. Take care of yourself.